Hello, everyone. I hope you're all got yourselves comfortable and ready to absorb some amazing stuff that we have for you today. Just to let you know, this is going to be running for the entire week, basically. Well, not the entire week, but most of it. Today, we're going to have some interesting discussions, but first, I want to talk about this being our 6th year and how disappointed we were that we weren't able to do this live in Amsterdam. I know that disappointment is shared not just among all the people involved in the project, but everybody that's here today. Everyone would much rather be in the city of deceit, and unfortunately, we couldn't do it this year. But we did put together an amazing week of summit presentations for you, interesting topics, great conversation, and I want to go over some rules to make sure that this is as civil as it can be. For all of you that are on the Slack channel right now or in Slack, thank you for taking the time to get registered in there and make sure that you're inside the chat, inside of the raffle, and the summit itself. There are 3 channels. Moderators will be taking questions from both the Slack summit chat as well as the chat in YouTube. So if you have a question, most questions will probably be taken care of at the end of each presentation, but make sure that you make it visible inside both of those channels so that it's not lost. Another thing, every day at the end of each session, we're going to be, well, not at the end of each session, but at the end of the day's sessions, we're going to be raffling off some amazing prizes. One of them is going to be one of these great OpenSIPS distributed 2020 t-shirts, and you'll be getting some opportunities to work with members of some of the best open source projects related not to just OpenSIPS but the world. Today we're going to be raffling off one of these that I mentioned, amazing t-shirts, and 1 hour. We're talking about 60 minutes, 3,600 seconds. That's your TTL, everyone. You'll be spending that with the entire OpenSIPS team. You can bring your ideas, your wildest ideas, or you could just sit there and look at each other. Nonetheless, the time is yours. But there is one very particular rule that you have to take into account. You need to be inside of the Summit raffle channel at the time of the drawing in order to be eligible. We have an amazing AI that we spent 6 years building, integrated it with Slack, and this AI will be choosing the winners of the raffle. By the way, that's built on the OpenSIPS 1.11 engine. So just so you know, it's not perfect.
It's not distributed.
It's not distributed, unfortunately. That's correct. We have some great moderators. We have the entire OpenSIPS team here. We have people from all over the world. And I want to really bring some attention to our really good friend, Maxim Sobolov. He's the one that's taking care of pushing all of this content, making sure it's available to all of you while we're presenting. And when we're done, all of this will still be available on YouTube channels, so you'll be able to watch it and rewatch it and rewatch it. We thank you all for coming here. This looks like an amazing turnout. I just want to point out that sitting inside of the raffle room right now are 347 lucky contestants. And in the chat, we only have 41 people that have questions already. Without further ado, I want to present to you all the founder, the genius, the man that can't grow hair, Mr. Bogdan Andrei-Iancu, the founder of OpenSIPS. He'll be kicking us off with his keynote. Welcome, everybody, to the 2020 OpenSIPS Summit Distributed.
Thank you, Alex. And welcome everyone, speakers, moderators, organizers, and the last but not the least, the participants, because at the end of the day, that's the reason why we are running this show, just to keep everyone connected to what's happening into the OpenSIPS world. And as Alex already mentioned, because of this, let's say, special, or whatever you want to call it, context, this year we had to go for the online and to a more compact format. And because it's an OpenSIPS Summit, well, we focused on mainly on OpenSIPS and the direct connection of OpenSIPS with other projects. Just again to try to deliver a more focused content. Having that said, I will share some, let's say, insights of the OpenSIPS 3.1 release. And yeah, Voodoo. Okay. And you know, we are all used to say in most of the presentations, we start with a bit of the history of the project. When let's say the project started, when there were some the major events during the lifetime of an event, you know, and things like that. But in my opinion, in terms of history, the most important is the history of what I called the history of the vision of the project. So what was the idea when we created this project, or when we started the project? What is the current and what we want to be our vision? Fortunately for us, it's the same. So we haven't changed a thing when it comes to the vision of the project. You know, the history of this bundle of projects, it's not simple, it's complicated. It stretches for more than almost like 20 years ago. But in terms of OpenSIPS, what we are keen and for, and what we are following is, first of all, the most important is to play as an open source project, and open source not means just sharing the code. I mean, that's not necessarily the whole idea. So the vision of the project, it's first of all focused on open source and you know, all the ingredients of open source, meaning you know, community interaction with the people providing help, working out contributions and things like that. Also, another important point of the vision is, we like to say that, okay, OpenSIPS, it's an industry-driven project. Basically, we like to work on the project and have a goal, its usage, you know, by different providers. So we are happy when we learn that, okay, people are actually using, and OpenSIPS, it's solving, let's say, addressing real needs of carrier ITSPs, different kind of service providers, and so on out there. So yeah, that's what keeps us motivated, just, you know, to see that it's heavily used. And the last but not the least, also very important, we try as much as possible, because it's almost impossible to be in real time, but we want to be up to date with let's say, all the you know, the news in terms of SIP, in terms of you know, trends when it comes to in terms of VoIP and you know, RTC and things like that. So we want to be sure that we are all the time having more or less the latest features included into the project. And yeah, because we are talking about history. Um, let's see in terms of releases a bit of, again, history of open source. In the last, I guess, 5 years, we are trying to have to put a label on each release. So we want to concentrate our effort on a particular topic on the major releases. In that case, we can boost the value of that. So, for example, with the OpenSIPS 2.3, which was, I think, roughly 4 or 5 years ago, we focused on integration with other projects, with Homer, with FreeSwitch, with maybe other protocols and so on. But the idea is, again, the idea was to aggregate our efforts into a single direction, so we can give some big weight on that. Again, historically speaking, then we had the 2.4, which was focused on clustering, and that was a big achievement in terms of a project, getting the clustering engine and a lot of modules being able to do the data sharing, real-time syncing, and so on through the clustering layer. Last year we had the 3.0, which was focused on DevOps, how to simplify the life mainly for the operators, for the OpenSIPs, for people running OpenSIPs, because at the end of the day, it's not enough just to have a very good piece of software. You have to make it, let's say, runnable. So for people to be able to, operate under safe and reliable conditions. And for this year release for the OpenSIP 3.41, we had the call crafting, and we're gonna see exactly what that means. But before jumping into that, I'm just continuing the numbering, so getting to the OpenSIP 3.2, which will be the next release. And because we are open source and we like to get any kind of input from community and community and industry driven, if you can contribute with ideas in terms of what should be done in 3.0, I have over here an Google form for that. The link will be distributed over the YouTube chat or by Slack also. So feel free to, again, provide your input in terms of what should be, what is needed to move on with the 3.2.
And Bogdan,
Yep.
if I'm not wrong, the 3.1 is a long-term release, so big deal.
Well, yes, that's it's not mentioned, but you are perfectly right. 3.1 would be, I mean, it is an LTS. So we are quite keen to make it a really stable release. And as an open source project, as developers, we also heavily rely on the community in order to provide a lot of testing and reporting, so we can provide fixings, because at the end of the day, OpenSIP is a quite complex beast in terms of piece of software, and it's almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's a quite huge task to perform all the possible tests. I mean, they are like probably huge, almost like infinite numbers of configurations that you can have in terms of scripting. So impossible to test.
As you tell a lot of times, there is so many usage for OpenSIPs that we don't even think about. I mean, people come out and companies come out with totally new usage that are not envisioned since before. So, I mean, very interesting use case and test cases.
That's perfectly right. I mean, it happened not only once when, let's say, releasing a new feature and somebody already, let's say, used it in combination with something else. We never thought about that combination, and because we never thought we never tested it. So yeah, you know, there might be potential surprises, like they may not work together, or they might have problems and so on. But as I said, yeah, as you said, people uses so many combinations that we actually quite a lot rely on the community to perform tests and to report. And actually the GitHub tracker for OpenSIP, it's quite an active one in terms of reporting, discussing about issues, feature requests, also fixing and so on. Sometimes it's like a more activity over there rather than in terms of asking for help in terms of how to use it. Probably that's thanks to the good documentation we have. Just kidding. Okay. So yeah, please try in the next days. I'll try to compile a kind of let's say answer by the end of the event. So by Friday, just to see exactly, you know, what people would expect from the next release. But going back to
just
the
a quick question, Bogdan. People ask
Sure.
to post that link to chat or Slack channel.
Yeah, if anyone in the
It's there, guys.
Okay. So just copy paste. Otherwise, we will redistribute it again. But should be on Slack and also on the YouTube chat. Going back on the 3.1 to the present. Again, some history, because it will be relevant in terms of what 3.1 tries to achieve. Originally, when the first line of code in the long history of of this code was written, that was 2001 with the SIP Express router. At that stage, it was more or less a quite straightforward, stateless or transactional SIP server. Nevertheless, transactional meaning just request replies, nothing more. I remember, I think it was 2001, 2002. In Focus Institute, we had Andrei. He wrote most of, at the time, quite a large part of the SER core. The transaction module was one of the, actually was the first module trying to get this transactional layer in use. And we were thinking like, wow, how many people will actually use, transactions, so stateful transactions in SIP? Because again, at that time, it was more like stateless, so very, very simple. And because of the stateless, more or less, you were not able to do, almost nothing. I mean, not to even detect like a call failure or something like that. So in terms of, let's say, SIP, the capabilities of SIP stack originally was a stateless proxy. And again, as a module, we had the transaction module. I was working on that together with Irji Kutan. He was, let's say, translating the RFC for us, just in terms of how should it work. And at that moment was more or less sufficient, but later in time, based on what people were trying to do with SER at that moment, we ended up with a need for something more. I mean, not only transaction, but we at the time I was already OpenSIR. We had the need for dialogue support. Basically, started with the idea of being able to track, count dialogue. So just simple, quite basic things related to the dialogues. But that was a real need, and the dialogue module was added. So that was a step forward from transactions. We got to the dialogue level support. Then 2009, 2011, we already had OpenSIPS as name for the project at the time. Then we got the back-to-back support into OpenSIPS. Again, a module that actually allows us to act as a SIP back-to-back to break the caller and the callee legs. So again, it was one more step in terms of the complexity of the SIP stack. Later years, up to now, this dialogue support got more and more advanced with different kind of additions in terms of handling in dialogue data, what you could do, like doing the pinging, controlling the duration of the dialogues, and so on and so on. And now everything, let's say, escalated with this year when we had this call crafting. So basically the ability to handle complex calling scenarios where OpenSIPS has the ability to play with the SIP as a SIP user agent client and user agent server in the same time to initiate calls, to manipulate SDP between calls, to exchange them between the calls, and so on. We're gonna see later. But I just wanted to have a bit of a history in terms of, again, the capability of the SIP stack, starting from a simple stateless proxy, transactional, having dialogues, back-to-back support, and now trying to fit everything together in order to achieve more complex scenarios. So with handling multiple calls, syncing between the calls, and so on. So yeah, OpenSIPS 3.1, as we like to say, so far we flexed the muscles. We tried to put a lot of traffic, throughput, how many registrations, how many thousands of calls, and so on and so on. But in the same time, we should not neglect the, let's say, the brain side, basically to increase the complexity of the logic in OpenSIPS. Because even if you can do a lot of things with OpenSIPS in terms of scenario, you still have to learn a lot in terms of SIP. You have to work at low level SIP traffic. So this might be a bit too, let's say, complicated in several scenarios. So that's why with the 3.1 we try to abstractize to create abstract elements for the SIP user agent clients and user agent servers, so you can easily work with them. To also have the possibility to interact and exchange data between the call, because this allows you to create more complex, typically class 5 scenarios, or better interaction when it comes to the media side. Because we have to admit, by design, OpenSIPS in all the shapes and history never had any kind of direct RTP support. We are relying on external apps for that, like RTP proxy, RTP media proxy, and RTP engine, historically speaking. So yeah, we need quite a good interaction with all these external softwares in order to do cool things with the RTP. And actually, Răzvan and Maxim will talk a bit more later about this. And when we had all these extensions at the SIP level, then we can build a lot of things on top of these SIP entities. For example, we can create more complex or advanced feature bar, combining dialogues with, the capabilities at dialogue level with the presence level, like the BLF, DFKS, and so on and so on and so on. Taking a look of the most important additions in 3.1, one is the call API. And as the name says, it's an API that allows you to run, manage calls through OpenSIPS. Because OpenSIPS, historically speaking, it's a proxy. That means that you OpenSIPS expects to receive calls and then to send them further, more or less, that's what a proxy does. But with the call API, we try to grab the full control over the call, and the actions in OpenSIPS are not necessarily triggered by incoming traffic, but they can be triggered by external entities, by other apps, portals, and so on. So shortly said, you may have a web portal that starts calls through OpenSIPS that can trigger a transfer or can put on mute a call in OpenSIPS. So all these are, first of all, triggered through OpenSIPS, so you don't have to trigger through SIP, and everything is done in terms of signaling by OpenSIPS in an encapsulated way. So if we are looking at levels at the bottom, we have the typical, the SIP stack that it's accessible by the OpenSIPS routing config. So you have access to all, a low-level access to all the basic elements in SIP, but it's very difficult to put together in order to do complex stuff. Next level are the SIP entities, which are provided by different kind of OpenSIPS modules. Like you already have a concept of a dialogue, of a back-to-back. Then the call-ops module, it's doing even more. And at the top, we have the call API, which offer you an abstract representation of a call, so you don't even have to be aware of SIP. So provides you quite a complex element, but something very easy to use in order to, as I said, start, stop, transfer call, put on hold, and maybe more in the future. But the idea is to provide, to encapsulate complex SIP scenarios in a way that are very, very easy to use from outside OpenSIPS, basically with any, without necessarily quite a deep SIP understanding. That's just a quite fast diagram of how this call API works. It's WebSocket based. It's a bidirectional, so you trigger different kind of actions into OpenSIPS. In the same time, you get a lot of events with what happened with the calls. This call API is an external application. It talks to to OpenSIPS, which controls the SIP and sometimes the RTP also. For more details on that, we have the next presentation. I don't want to get into too many details, not to be a spoiler. We have Razvan talking about the call API in 3.1. Another great addition was is the media mixing. Why it's so great is because, as I said, OpenSIPS does not directly operate with the RTP. I mean, probably you are used with Asterisk, with FreeSwitch, where you have the signaling and the media together, so you can do a lot of things when it comes to the media. Well, for OpenSIPS, it's not the same, because the only thing that we directly have access is actually the SDP. We don't directly have access to the RTP itself, so we have to rely on external components in order to deal with the media. But in the complex call scenarios, you cannot deal only with signaling all the time. It's also about media. You can do, okay, I want to do a music on hold. Okay, somebody has to stream the music. Or I want to do a call parking. Well, okay, somebody has to play back some when you park the call. All the time, media, it's there. So you have to have some tools to allow you to operate with the media. And for OpenSIPS, that's the so-called media exchanger module. What's the idea behind? The idea is to have OpenSIPS still acting as a proxy. So between A and B, you still have a proxied call. But when it comes to the RTP, by passing it through by having control over the SDP, you can actually individually control the RTP streams going to A and B by, again, operating as the SDP level. Basically, in this example, like we try to do an RTP injection during a call. So basically, in terms of signaling, we don't replace calls. We don't change. We don't have separate legs or anything like that. We still have the SIP1 call between A and B. We just use reinvites in order to inject different SDPs, which are collected from different calls. So basically, we take the call from a media. We get the RTP from a media server by using different SIP calls, and then we just grab the SDP and we push it into the original call. So by doing that with the reinvites, we are able to, in this example, to inject custom RTP in an ongoing call. In a similar way, you can do also RTP forking, basically to grab the RTP from one side, from both sides, in order to do recording or features like call listening or call barging and stuff like that. So again, trying as much as possible to keep the model of a proxy by using reinvites and mixing the SDPs between the different SIP calls. We are trying to get the RTP media from a media server, also through SIP, and mixing it with the original call. On Friday, Razvan will have a presentation on that with more details and some cool demo on how you can do the media exchanging. And because we are talking about the media, also in that area, we have the DTMF interception feature, basically using an external RTP relay. Can be RTP proxy or RTP engine at this moment. OpenSIPS can receive DTMF notifications at the script level, and in a very custom way, you can decide, okay, what to do with those notifications. Notifications may trigger, let's say, changes into the signaling, may trigger changes, non-SIP changes. For example, you can interact through any queuing or REST interface with external elements, and so on. There are some great examples on how you can use the DTMF sampling from RTP level with the media exchanger in order to, for example, trigger some fancy on-hold, off-hold, or to insert like authentication PIN number, or simulating kind of an IVR. For playing different kind of, for injecting different kind of announcements from outside, and everything again by acting as a proxy. So you don't have to go into the actual back-to-back area or anything like that. You have a proxy called and grabbing DTMF and using custom scenarios for injecting RTP by SDP into the call. You can actually create really cool stuff.
Bogdan, so
Yep.
if I understood correctly, you're envisioning and you're delivering an extremely scalable IVR capable and media capable engine. So, in the future, we will no more think about OpenSIPS as only as a proxy for signaling, but it will allow the community, will allow also very big operations into having simple media services without using directly asterisk, free switch, or things like that. It will be limited to OpenSIPS and RTP engine, RTP proxy, or some that is so much scalable. This is big, big news.
Almost there. You definitely need an media server in order to generate the RTP. So OpenSIPS will not generate RTP at all. What OpenSIPS will do. So basically, you'll still need, let's say, whatever free switch or asterisk in order to generate the media itself. The idea is you can take the RTP generated through a completely new call, let's say from free switch, and I can inject it into an existing call. So as the name says, a media exchanger, it's not generating an RTP, but RTP stream, but can replace the RTP streams between calls. So I can keep my original call ongoing, and then I can create, for example, a separate call to free switch, make free switch to play something, and I just grab that RTP stream and feed it into my original call with a simple reinvite to the new SDP. So basically, I'm just doing basic signaling into an existing call, like a reinvite, in order to feed in a completely different stream from a different SIP call. But again, I still need an SIP media server. But yeah, it's definitely true what you said in terms of scalability, because in that case, OpenSIPS having full control in terms of the calls as a signaling, then I can have a cluster of or a distributed set of media servers generating the RTP, and with with a single OpenSIPS just doing the mixing of the SDP between the calls. So basically controlling the whole process of injecting the RTP into the existing calls. So yeah, also for this topic, it's not only about injecting, can work in the other way around, like grabbing media from existing calls. So it works in both directions. With a media exchanger, yeah, the DTMFs can control this kind of SDP replacement. On Wednesday, Razvan will run some presentation on and demo on that. Believe me, you can do really cool things. Also on Wednesday, Maxim Sobolev will also give us some updates on the RTP proxy project, so we can see how everything will fit together. So far, we talked about quite high level concepts like API, or how you can play with the call at an abstract level. Nevertheless, in order to achieve a good control over the calls, we have to look quite closely to the low level in terms of SIP signaling. And in this area, we have the push notification, actually in 3.1, which is an accurate implementation of the RFC 8599, which is the latest. It's last year released RFC in regards to push notification for SIP. There were specifications for a push notification with SIP even before, but they were a bit loose and maybe not covering everything. For example, this new RFC basically unifies and cover all the aspects in terms of SIP with push notification, in terms of how the endpoint, I mean the SIP user agent, should create and maintain a session with a push notification server, and then how to share the information about this push notification server with the SIP server. And okay, once the SIP server becomes aware of this push notifications session, how it is used during different kind of SIP scenarios, like how it works in terms of registrations, refreshing, how you do push notification when you want to establish a call, or even worse, actually worse meaning more complicated, how you do the push notification for the in dialogue request. So things are a bit more complicated. It's not only for triggering a quick registration, as probably most of us are used to. Is let's say covering all the aspects of SIP. So that's a great addition of this RFC. And tomorrow, Liv, you will get quite a lot in details with the presentation and some demo about this new push notification supporting 3.1.
There's no demo.
Okay, just presentation. That's one of the tricky things with the push notification, because it's like how to say, a three-party marriage, because you have the user agent, the device, the end device. You have the push notification service, which complicating things may be provided by let's say for Android, for iOS, or for whatever. And then you have also the SIP server. So all of them have to talk and eventually play by the rules in order to make it work. So yeah, when it comes to putting together like a demo, it's indeed it's not so.
Wait a second. Wait a second. How long does he have between now and then?
So okay, he's doing tomorrow like a typical 1 hour session overall.
I'm going to start a GoFundMe for this to happen.
Well, leave his address, so don't be shy. Okay, and yeah, because we keep talking also about the low level, cool aspects of controlling calls and stuff like that. We have the Steer and Shaken addition into OpenSIPS. I don't want to be a spoiler on this area. We have this support since last year. Basically, Steer and Shaken, it's a how to say, like a distributed way to authenticate and verify the caller ID of the call, just to prevent caller ID spoofing, robocalls, and things like that. And in terms of the signaling, I mean, interacting with the signaling and performing the jobs, OpenSIPS can perform both the authentication and verification. So can insert, let's say, on the carrier side, all the information about that. It can verify it on a provider side or vice versa. So covers in terms of functionality, everything, and also provides different kind of usage models in terms of how you want to operate with the certificates, because okay, this part is still a bit under discussions or still settling a bit. So in terms of certificate managing, it can be completely unaware, so agnostic from this perspective. Or also it can do like a self-managing, like fetching certificates, caching, and stuff like that. And yeah, Vlad Petrashko will give a presentation tomorrow with more details about the Steer and Shaken stuff. Because again, when it comes to complex call routing, we want to cover the whole as many aspects as possible for this topic. For the 3.1, we have the quality-based routing. That's an old idea we are let's say, flirting around, and it seems that 3.1 was the lucky number, a lucky version for this quality-based routing. I don't know, Livio, do you remember for how long we have this on the pipe? Because to be honest, I lost track of it.
Actually, yes, I do. I think it's since 2015.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, it was a really difficult birth for this model, for this feature, like 5 years. Wow. Okay. What's the idea with the quality-based routing? As the name says, instead of doing prefix-based routing or anything like this, you may also want to first learn about the quality of the calls. By quality, meaning different kind of parameters at the signaling level, like PDD, AST, ACD, and stuff like that. And depending on the quality given by these statistics, you may control your routing. So basically, you want all the time to hit, in terms of routing, the gateways providing the best quality. And the good part is that everything is automatically. So OpenSIPS is continuously learning and updating these statistics based on the ongoing traffic. So you don't have to, let's say, pre-populate any kind of data from this perspective. And based on the collected statistics, it will automatically update, so in real time, the list of destinations for the routing, so that the first used one, it's all the time the one offering the best quality. But Livio will show more on this on Thursday. It's a quite cool things addressing some real life need.
On Wednesday.
Okay, sorry, Wednesday. Yeah, actually, tense is Wednesday. Yeah, okay, Wednesday. Thanks for the correction. And okay, because I'm running a bit out of time, we have actually many more other features in OpenSIPS 3.1, like the dialogue enhancements, basically the ability to access dialogue and accounting information between the calls. This works nice when you want to put together, scenarios like a call transfer or call parking or call pickup. So basically, in a scenario where multiple calls are involved and you need to coordinate and exchange information between them. So all these additions for the 3.1 in terms of dialogue, dialogue context information, that's really cool. And yeah, it's even cooler because I will talk about that on Friday, and have a demo to show how you can do that. It's not September, it's September, but yeah, okay. So this will be covered on Friday. Then something that Vlad will show on next Monday, so in 1 week from now during a workshop, we have the digital feature key support, sync, sorry, support, which is basically a concept introduced by Broadsoft, I think, which allows you to synchronize the status of a feature between the server and the phone. Because, for example, for setting the do not disturb or call forward, you can do such control over the feature both from the phone itself or from the, let's say, application server or from the server side. And the idea is to keep them in sync. Doesn't really matter where you do it. So you can do it from both, but the idea is just to have a single status. And that's something that it's done through presence. So actually it's a really interesting feature, and also the design of the module. It's really nice because it allows you to scale, let's say, for the future with multiple with more features, not limited to DND or call forward. Also part of the work of Vlad, we start investing more and more into the back-to-back user agent. First step was adding the clustering or the replication support for the back-to-back. next steps would be to extend this support to all the modules using the back-to-back layer, like call center, in order to achieve not necessarily distributed capabilities, but also to get high availability. So basically replication for HA purposes. In terms of combining features from different SIP layers like dialogues and presence, 3.1 has an extended support for BLF. The BLF is a quite used features because in a setup there are different kind of components that may want to know the status of a SIP terminal. Like if it's a call available or not. For example, in call parking, you want to know what is the status of an parking slot, or in order to do transfer, you want to know the status of the other party, or similar for call pickup. So the idea of sharing the call status of people or services, it's a really needed feature. And even if this BLF support exists for quite a long time, we updated this in 3.1 in order to properly work for the during the serial and parallel forking. So these are some pretty cool additions that helps you, for example, when implementing call hunting or hunting groups or call forward, in order to get the proper publishing for BLF. Contribution from Vlad Paiu, the rate cacher, which is kind of a postpaid engine for OpenSIPS. So besides existing options, now you have another one directly into OpenSIPS. And one of the last on my list, it's the JWT authentication. Actually, authentication over the JSON web socket. It's a quite used authentication way when you have, let's say, multiple layer of authentication. Like first, like in WebRTC, first you authenticate in a web portal, and then you have to authenticate also in SIP, and so on and so on. So to avoid multiple authentications, you can, let's say, reshare the already existing authentication. So that's the JWT authentication support. Vlad Paiu, the developer, and I think with together with Shlomi Goodman, they will talk about this on Thursday. They will give a detailed presentation about this new edition of 3.1. And I think there are like many other, or it's a long list. I tried to cover the most relevant, and I think I still have 3 minutes for questions. So yeah, sorry for speeding up at the end. But yeah, it's quite a lot to talk about this new release. So
okay, light up the chat channels. Let's get some questions.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well, for questions, Bogdan, I also wanted to mention that we are going to run, if you're interested, for example, in stir shaken or maybe some of the push notification scenarios, we're going to run a little bit of interop test next week, Monday and Tuesday. So we'll hopefully have a chance to play with those between different implementations.
Yeah, that's a good step, as Maxim mentioned, on next Monday and Thursday. Maxim is running this OpenSIPS SIP interoperability testing, where we want to try to put together different implementations for various features and hopefully make them work together.
All right. I don't think we have any questions on chat.
Yeah, I was also going to answer. I mean, add something to Giovanni's question regarding replacing a media server. No, we're definitely not doing that, but we're definitely helping scaling all the this kind of platforms. For example, you will no longer need pin your call to a specific free switch instance. Let's say you can have the call proxied and then just use different available free switches for an announcement or something like that. So this will definitely improve the performance, or it will definitely scale up.
We have our first question. This is from Adam Jeffrey. He wants to know
Information.
minute detail.
I'll ask again during the presentation, but there is also some implementation that can do like broadcasting, like to have one call stream from the media server, for example, that is broadcasted to many other calls.
You mean in OpenSIPS or in free switch?
No, through OpenSIPS media capability.
Yes, that can be possible. As far as I know, we're now limited to only one stream, but that can be easily done, like having more. Actually, I think this was a limitation in an older version, but now we can have multiple streams, like forking the media to multiple participants in different calls, probably. So I think this is available. I will have to double check on that. But yeah, there's a question.
This can do some bizarre environment for a very scalable conferencing system where only one can speak at once.
Yes, we can do that, but yeah, more or less, because in a call, there's only one stream bidirectional. The other ones are unidirectional. They're only listening streams. Regarding, so there's a question regarding what's the roadmap for the call API. I will present in like a couple of minutes, so I won't answer this question right now. But there are a few other questions.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. Not sure if we should take care of them now, or
I think two of them actually kind of are together. So maybe we'll do Adam and Stas's questions together. Adam wants to know, what's the roadmap look like for the call API? And Stas in that wants to know why the WebSocket was chosen for the call API. Were there any other protocols considered during the design?
Yes, but
I think let's because the next presentation is actually about the call API. So if the questions are related to the call API, I think let's buffer the questions for the moment. These ones have Razvan enlighten us with the call API details, and then yeah, we can address these questions.
Okay, is that okay with everyone else? Is there going to be protests?
hope not.
We're ready for other questions. We would be much tougher after.
So there was one odd question out in all these. Do you want to maybe just consider it real quick? The OpenSIPS rate cacher module. Can we think of that module as a replacement for CG rates? And if we don't want to use third-party billing solution, we can use lightweight rate cacher module. So I guess the question is it a replacement, or is it maybe a complement?
I would say it's an alternative. As the name says, it doesn't want necessarily to be a super complex, feature full or whatever you want to call it, like a billing engine. It's more like if you need something I wouldn't say simple, but basic and fast, then you can use the rate cacher. But if you actually need fully flavored billing engine, probably you should go for like CG rates. And I'm just as a note, nobody has anything against third-party solutions in terms of ideally when they're also open source. So it's not like we would like to do everything by ourselves. So we rely on many other projects in order to, let's say, complete the whole ecosystem required by a VoIP solution.
That's as good an answer as any. So I think
Thanks.
wrap up questions here. If there's any additional questions, we can save them for later in the day in the summit chat. But I think just like Bogdan said, we're getting started here. We've learned about some really cool stuff we're expecting to see more of. And some people just want to know more right now. That information is going to be coming soon.